Most people agree we live in an increasingly polarized political environment where it seems like nobody would change their view for anything. But some new research shows there might be some hope. So one of the things people talk about a lot is everyone is in their media echo chambers and they don't hear the other side's view. And if they do, it's in out of context little clips that their media sources show them just to make a point against it. And I think most people assume even if they were to watch the opposing side's media coverage, they wouldn't change their views or anything. They would just think it's all lies. And so that's what at least I have believed for a long time and viewed as one of the reasons we're so polarized, is we have these crazy different media environments that people live in. And so one of the things I try to do a lot on this show is speak to people in a way that even if you disagree with me, you can watch what I'm saying and possibly get some value out of the points that I'm making. And the reason for that obviously is hopefully people will change their views on some things and eventually be closer to where I am politically. But I'll be honest, it wasn't that hopeful. Like, I thought I could get some people, but on a mass scale, the idea that people will change their views seems unlikely in our current political world. But it might not be as unlikely of a thing as many people, including myself, thought. So we'll read through it in just a second, but the broad summary of it is two political scientists did a study where they got regular Fox News viewers who, watched it, believed all those things, to watch CNN. They paid them to watch CNN and then saw how their views changed. And after not that long of a time, people's views actually changed. That's amazing. Okay, let's read. David Bruckman and Joshua Kalla, political scientists at the University of California, Berkeley and Yale University, respectively, paid 304 regular Fox News viewers $15 an hour to instead watch up to 7 hours of CNN a week during the month of September 2020. The switchers were given regular news quizzes to make sure they were indeed watching CNN, while a control group of Fox News viewers continued with their regular media diet. Much of the news cycle in September 2020 focused on policing and protests in Kenosha, Wisconsin, which began after Jacob Blake, a black man, was shot and seriously injured by police in late August. During the protests, Kyle Rittenhouse, a teenager from Illinois, shot and killed 2 men and wounded another. The events became a political tool for Republicans, including Donald Trump, who later announced he would send federal law enforcement agents to Kenosha. Here's where it gets interesting. By the end of September, the CNN watchers were less likely to agree that it is an overreaction to go out and protest in response to the police shooting of Jacob Blake in Kenosha, Wisconsin, and less likely to believe that if Joe Biden is elected president, we'll see many police get shot by Black Lives Matter activists when compared with their peers who continued watching Fox News. So people who were watching Fox News and then just watched for, it sounds like, 1 month of CNN now go, okay, yeah, it's kind of reasonable to go out and protest after the Jacob Blake shooting, or I don't think that Black Lives Matter activists are going to be running around shooting people if Joe Biden is elected president. I know that seems like such a dumb thing to do, but the idea that anyone would change their view on that issue just because they're watching a different news network is kind of crazy. The CNN switchers were also, as Bloomberg's Matthew Yglesias reported, 10 points less likely to believe that Joe Biden supporters were happy when police officers get shot, and 11 points less likely to believe that it is more important for the president to focus on violent protests than the coronavirus pandemic. So 10 points difference from watching Fox and CNN about if they think Democrats are, why they would think this ever is crazy, but happy whenever police get shot, and also if they think it's more important for the president to focus on protests than the coronavirus. So they go in what I consider to be the correct direction by 10 points plus on both of those things just because they switched to watching CNN. Wow. So just by getting people to watch a different media source, within a month, their views dramatically change on the very relevant issues of that time. Now, I'm going to be honest, I think a Fox News viewer, based on what I've seen of Fox News, is more likely to shift dramatically if they watch CNN or MSNBC than the other way around. And here's why. Fox News doesn't actually tell you what all the facts are that the other side is presenting. Even if they say it's dishonest, this, that, and the other, they don't even tell you what the other side is saying. And if they do, it's in what I consider to be a really dishonest manner. Whereas more liberal considered channels and even YouTube shows, definitely talk a lot about what the right wing is saying. And so the experience of going from watching a more liberal media source to a conservative one is just going to be you going, yeah, I've heard all this and I believe it to be lies. Whereas the other way around, I think a lot of people go, oh, I didn't even know this fact or this fact or this fact. And the fact that I didn't know it makes me distrust my previous source a lot more. But I will say both sides 100% frame things dishonestly when talking about certain issues. Of course, I think the right-wing networks do it worse, but that's not to say left-wing networks don't do it really bad. And just as a side note, CNN and MSNBC are definitely not left-wing. They're not progressive. They're definitely progressive and liberal on social issues, but when it comes to economic issues and which candidates they give favorable treatment to, they definitely tend to be more conservative, at least within the Democratic Party. But that's a complete side note. One of the things I've been talking a lot with a lot of the close people in my life is that it's so annoying, our current media atmosphere. No matter where you go, it seems like someone's going to be dishonestly presenting the information to benefit their side. I mean, I watch progressive shows that I love. I've watched them for years, and it bothers me because they'll not present all of the facts that you need to know. They'll kind of focus on this little element of a study or this little element of an article, and then blossom their entire point out of it, leaving out very important context. And while I think their broader goals in regard to the progressive shows I'm talking about are awesome, and we would agree on a million things if we were actually running the government, but the way they present some stories because they want to push a certain agenda, again, I agree with their agenda, but they want to push it, they sometimes do dishonest things. Again, I think it's way worse on the right, but this actually is one of those both sides issues. And that's why I try so hard on this show to tell you my opinion, of course, but first lay out the facts and never get lazy with my research and never present things in kind of I'll just bend this truth a little bit so it helps my point. No, I want to give you all the facts as they are and then make my point based on those. And I've gotten some feedback that I very much appreciate from people who say, look, I'm conservative. I don't really agree with most of what you say, but I very much like the way that you do your show because it's not calling people's names, it's not being dishonest in any way. And that's what I try to do so that anyone can watch the show, get the facts from the stories that I'm telling, consider the points that I'm making that are opinion based, and then move on with their day. So my point in saying all of that is just getting people to go from watching just Fox News to just CNN is not the best thing ever. I do believe that if you have to watch one of them, let's get you to watch CNN. But ideally, people would understand how to get a wide range of media and know what trusted sources look like. Read more. Don't just watch opinion people tell you the news. Actually go read objective reporting on what's going on in the world. And then it's kind of a sprinkle on top. Watch some opinion shows. And I think people on the left should prioritize providing news that is actually factual. And that doesn't mean not lying, because a lot of shows that I'm talking about right now that are on the left, they don't explicitly lie at all. They just more don't tell certain parts of the story so that they don't have to address truths that are sort of annoying. Or they frame things sort of dishonestly, stuff like that. The right wing will just make up stuff and lie. But if we want to get people on the right to trust the left, we have to be completely flawless with the content that we're putting out. So you can go through everything that I've said in all my last videos, for example, talking about myself, and you're not going to find anything that I'm ashamed of as far as the way that I presented it, the framing, the honesty. Every single show on the left, including cable news shows, should absolutely be trying to do that so that if we can get people, hey, just watch a little bit. I know you're a Fox News viewer. Watch a little bit of these other shows. They won't find any holes in the argument. They won't think you're being dishonest in any way. And they'll be much more likely to really begin to trust us and hopefully move over to our side. But with all of that being said, this story was very hopeful because people maybe are more open-minded to having their minds changed than we thought.